We're now joined by ABC News political director Rick Klein for how this could impact Trump's campaign.
Rick, thank you so much for being with us this evening. We want to start off talking about the former president's next stop. It's going to be here in New Hampshire on Tuesday night. What can we expect his demeanor to be? What can we expect that visit to be like, and the response from voters?
Yeah, Marissa, we've seen the president, the former president, take these previous indictments and turn them into his political message. And in fact, the legal message and the political message are almost impossible to discern from each other. They're basically the same. And what he just said right there about if you can't beat them, persecute and prosecute, that to me is the crux of the message he's going to bring. As for voters, look, we've been talking to a lot across New Hampshire and around the country, and most of Trump supporters are with him and will be with him through thick and thin. But there's definitely a subset of Trump supporters, people that voted for him once or even twice, who say, you know what, maybe there's enough about the baggage, enough that's out there. That's what's fueling some of the interest in other candidates. I think that's what was behind Ron DeSantis's once soaring poll numbers. And I think there's still an opportunity the other candidates have to exploit if they play the angles right. But it's tough because he is the prohibitive front runner, up 35, 37 points in national polls right now.
Well, so Rick, talking about the polls, if past is prologue, are you expecting to see an indictment bump from this third indictment? The previous ones we've seen, he actually goes up in the polls, speaking of the former president, or is this one different in some way, do you think?
Well, look, you're right that if you go back a couple of months, he was in a weaker position relative to where he is right now. I don't know that every indictment necessarily makes him stronger. And there might be reasons that this is different. First, everyone saw January 6th. It's not like hush money to a porn star. It's not like classified document handling. This was in front of the world to see. Everyone saw his actions that day. In addition to that, I think even to see people like Mike Pence as his former running mate and the man who withstood all that pressure, now saying, look, I think what was laid out here makes someone disqualified to be president. He is going to be potentially a witness in this case. That might change the severity of it. And we're getting into a political season where people are trying to make distinctions. So I don't think it's as easy as saying this will definitely soar for poll numbers for Donald Trump. But you're right in pointing out that if we look at any of the recent history, there's nothing to suggest that he's going to crater as a result of this.
And we've seen the strategy of the other Republican candidates in this race, their approach on the campaign trail so far. Should we expect to see that change after this third indictment and with the polls staying pretty steady as far as they've been right now?
I think you're seeing some subtle changes. Obviously, Mike Pence, as I mentioned, is getting a lot stronger in his separation. It's notable to me how few candidates, even Trump allies, are willing to defend his actions that day. They're mostly focused on the Justice Department, and they're talking about unequal application of justice, all of which is well and good, but it doesn't matter for a court of law. Whataboutism isn't going to be a defense for Donald Trump. It isn't necessarily going to be a political defense either. And if he's on a debate stage, that he decides to participate in a debate and is asked directly about issues around January 6th, how does he respond? How does he react to others who are challenging him? That could frame the campaign ahead.
All right, ABC News political director Rick Klein, thank you so much for being with us tonight, Rick.
Thank you both.